Good afternoon, Wolverines, and thank you so much for joining us at today's Town Hall Talk with Tuminez, focused on COVID-19 and what we are doing as a university to adjust to the many changes that have been happening and have been coming at us in the past few weeks. Some of you may have recently seen a faculty message to our students. And I'd like to if you hold on just a second, I need the slides to come up so you could see the picture of our faculty members. So we've had this amazing message from faculty, and if you've not seen it, please go see it. It's about 6 minutes long. And it's been wonderful to see the compassion, the care, the calm, the competence of our faculty in giving encouragement to our students. And I think this video was one indication to me of our true caring as a community. At this time, I want to acknowledge and thank our faculty for all the heavy lifting that they've done. But as we know, this is not only the work of faculty, but the work of staff, the work of students, the work of administration, and the work of our many partners. We have truly shined as a community and have shown exceptional care and exceptional accountability. I also want to make an announcement today that I know many have been anticipating the date for commencement. And the way things are under COVID-19, we are getting used to pivoting very, very quickly. At the end of the day yesterday, we had an exact date for commencement, but unfortunately, as of 9 a.m. this morning, a few other changes have happened. And so we are today announcing that commencement will be either on August 19 or 20. And we are still hoping to have Gail Miller as our commencement speaker and Professor Dave Ulrich as a recipient of an honorary doctorate, as well as Dan Campbell as a second recipient of an honorary doctorate. We would like to ask you to be a little more patient as we work out the specifics of many moving parts to commencement, but please take down the dates of either August 19 or 20. I would also like to talk a little bit about some of the big steps we have taken to pivot as a result of COVID-19. You will see in a second here on the slide that a lot of changes have happened. We have felt this, we have lived this, we have stepped up. Some days we haven't felt so totally in control, but most days we know that we are working with the community and that everyone is doing a heavy lift. So if you just look at this list, it's quite remarkable. We have transferred over 4,000 sections of our courses online in record time. You all know that we have canceled travel. We have canceled activities on campus. We have limited some of our services that are on campus. We have offered many services remotely, and at this moment, only 4 buildings are open. Later, I will put up a slide with FAQs, frequently asked questions, where you can get more detail on all the many changes that have taken place. So in addition to all the steps that we have taken, one thing that has really been, I think, differentiating quality of what UVU is that we have done special fundraising to help our students through the coordinated access to resources and education. This fundraising has been intended to help students with emergency needs during this time of COVID-19. So it includes our food pantry. It includes temporary assistance of between $50 to $500 that we're able to give to our students who need additional help at this point in time. We will now go to a video message from Professor Sue Jackson, who is an epidemiologist and an associate professor of community and public health here at UVU. We wanted to have Professor Jackson here today in person, but she couldn't make it. But I think given that we have this type of expertise on campus, let's listen to a brief explanation from her about COVID-19 from an epidemiological perspective.
Thank you, President Tuminez. I'm happy to be here with you today and with the UVU community to tell you a little bit about epidemiology. I teach the epidemiology course in the Department of Public and Community Health. Epidemiology is all about disease, where it comes from, the risk factors, tracking disease cases, and looking at rates over time. I want to share some of the data that I'm looking at with all of you. This first chart is an Excel file where I've tracked the number of cases per day for both Utah and Utah County. This is just the last couple of weeks that we're looking at here. The first column is the number of total cases. So that includes recovered cases. It's everybody who's been diagnosed with COVID in Utah. Utah's in green, Utah County is in peach. So that first column is total number of cases. That second column is the number of new cases each day. So cases that were diagnosed from the day before. The last column is the rate of change. So when we look at rate of change, we're looking at today's number divided by yesterday's number to see how fast it's growing. Now, as that rate of change gets closer to 1, that means that the disease isn't growing at all and we've stopped the epidemic. But if the rate is much higher, so for instance, if we look at Utah on March 28th and we see a rate of 1.25, that means we had 25% more cases than the previous day. Now, we've been as high as the 1.3s and 1.4s, and we're starting to come down. So as you start to see those rates decrease, that's a reflection of our social distancing that's working. Now, as we look at the rates for Utah, this line chart is showing that rate of change over the last week or so. And so you can see that we've started to come down. It's a little bit rough because our testing data isn't great. So the bar chart's going, or the line graph is going up and down a little bit, but we can overall see a general curve downward in that rate of change. If we compare Utah to the US and Utah County, though, it looks a little bit less favorable for Utah County. We're seeing the US at the rate of growth of 1.13, Utah of 1.11, and Utah County of 1.20. That means we're actually growing faster than the US is and Utah is. We have 20% more cases than the day before is what we're averaging for the last 7 days. Now, the encouraging part is the last 2 days have been pretty good, and I'm hopeful that that's a trend in the right direction for Utah. This next chart looks at the number of new cases. Now, what we're looking at here is we're hoping to peak out in the number of new cases and then start to come back down. It looks like we have a little peak there, but we've got to watch the data longer to see if that's actually the peak for Utah or if we're still going to have more new cases in the coming days. This next chart breaks down Utah by the health district. So we have health districts in Utah that then report to the state health department. In Utah County, it's easy because our county and our health department are the same geographical area. And so when we look at Utah County here, we are number 5 in terms of the health districts in our incidence rate. Now, an incidence rate is the number of cases per 100,000 in the population. This is where the news media has gotten it wrong because they keep talking about the number of cases without talking about populations. You can't measure the extent of an epidemic without looking at the population size. And so as we're looking at this, Utah County is sitting at 37.9 cases of COVID for every 100,000 people in Utah County. So you can see those incidence rates in that very last column there. This next chart breaks it down by age. We've often heard that this is an older person disease, but that's not really what we're seeing. We're seeing that the highest incidence rate is between those 45 to 64, and that the highest percentage of number of cases actually comes from 25 to 44-year-olds, with 40% of our cases in that population. This next chart is going to show a similar idea, that we actually have a lot of cases in that 25 to 44-year-old category. In fact, if we take the 15 to 24 and the 25 to 44 categories combined, that's 55% of all of our cases. So even though we might say this is affecting older people more seriously, we actually have more cases in that younger population. A couple of things that I want you to keep in mind. Number one is that we need to watch that rate of growth. We need to stop the growth from being so exponentially high. Number two is that we need to look at our numbers per 100,000. We can't just look at raw data and look at how many cases we have, but we have to look at it on a population level. And then 3, the evidence that our social distancing is actually making a difference. You can see that in the numbers. We need to stick with it, especially in Utah County, and make sure that we limit our contact as much as possible and only have essential services so that we can bring this pandemic down.
I want to thank Professor Jackson again for that very helpful overview of what we're dealing with in Utah, as well as here specifically in Utah County, and repeat her reminder for all of us to continue social distancing. I am very pleased that here in studio today, I have with me Robin Ebmeyer, our Director for Emergency management, and safety. Some of you, or many of you, may know Robin and just know what a capable, extremely dependable person she is. So I've asked Robin today to talk a little bit about what UVU has done to date. And those of you who have submitted questions will notice that Robin will actually be answering directly some of the questions that you have sent to us. So over to you, Robin.
Thank you, President Tuminez, for the invitation. In about mid-January, I became aware of this potential new virus that had surfaced in China and started watching it immediately. Also started to update the president and the cabinet about it and continued to watch it. As you know, the virus has made it all the way to our homes and to our campus. Our hearts and our thoughts go out to those who have been affected by this virus, whether it be physically, emotional, mental, and even economical. This virus has affected all of us in some way. I'm grateful for the opportunity to address a few of the questions that have come up today. First, I'm going to start with one of the main questions is, why are we not moving to the orange level? Why do we remain in the yellow level? You may remember at the end of March that Governor Herbert put out a directive entitled Stay Home, Stay Safe. This was not a shelter-in-place order, but a directive that would help guide our actions on campus. Within days of this directive, we took our own plan and the directive the governor put out and compared them and made some adjustments at that time to better reflect what he had in his directive. I want to talk about a couple of things specifically in the directive. In the travel section of the governor's directive, it says, quote, essential travel means travel to perform work if you cannot telework, unquote. The directive also states that we should, quote, refine business response plans as needed, unquote. As I mentioned, we completed a review of our own plan, matching it with the governor's directive. The directive also states, quote, only employees or volunteers who perform work that cannot be done from their homes should be or exempted from telework, unquote. The directive also states that we should implement flexible work schedules and work hours, which we have been actively pursuing and continue to do so. I would add that a main purpose for staying open is for the success of our students. This semester, completing their coursework this semester. We have shut down several of the buildings, you've noticed that, to make it possible for others to telework. These basic and essential services that remain are needed by the students to be successful this semester. As you know, we have limited access to the buildings, and this week have implemented some CDC guidelines for wearing masks when we're out and about and around other people. This is a further protection to us. There are many superstars that should be acknowledged. Those that continue to make the campus safe, secure, comfortable, and clean deserve our thanks and gratitude. Some have wondered about the cleaning on campus. I will let you know that early on, we reviewed CDC guidelines and ensured that the solutions and cleaning supplies we use are compliant with CDC recommendations. What happens if someone on campus tests positive for the COVID-19 virus? The process is, if they test positive, the local health department is notified. The local health department then traces, tracks, and conducts surveillance, which means that they will contact those people who have been in close contact with them. So if that happens on campus, you would be contacted by the local health department. Beyond that, we have created a self-reporting form that allows students, staff, or faculty to go on and self-disclose whether they have tested positive for the coronavirus. If they have done that, that helps us to assist the local health department and to know, are there areas where we can clean more, or specifically which we have done. Lastly, I would just encourage you, again, the same things we've heard over and over again. Please stay at home if you're sick and take care of yourselves. Wash your hands, don't touch your face, and please exercise social distancing.
Thank you, Robin. I hope that you found Robin's comments very helpful in talking about hand sanitizer. Let me just quickly sanitize my hands here. And I know that there are some masks available for our custodial crew. And here's my own mask, which I don't have to wear right now as I'm talking and safely distanced from others here in Studio B of our broadcast services. I just want to say that the Cabinet, again, reiterate, the Cabinet meets every single day on COVID-19. We see Robin Ebmeyer every single day. Robin updates us on these numbers, and we try as a team to reason and analyze and see what we need to adjust in terms of our measures and policies and our communications on campus and with the UVU community. I have now here with me Vice President Val Peterson, who oversees Facilities, Finance, and Administration. And there were some questions submitted that I think Val could answer directly. We want you to know that we read all 260 questions that were submitted. We see you and we hear you. And these questions communicated to us some of the anxieties that you are feeling, some of the discomfort with uncertainties. But we also noted in these questions the sense of strength and resiliency. So I want to congratulate you for that strength and resiliency, and thank you for your engagement in submitting so many questions to us. Val, thank you for being here.
Thank you, President.
The first question to you is this. I will just read the question. I work in the bookstore and we are still required to work. Why are we still open when everything is closed?
Well, I think that Robin talked about this a little bit, but right now we're under modified operations. So campus isn't actually closed. We actually have 4 buildings that are still open, and with those buildings that are open, we are conducting operations. We're hoping that if a student does need to come down to campus, that they can still do everything that they need to finish out this semester. As all of you know, we still have over 41,000 students who are going to school right now, and they need access to materials, computers, the items that they need to finish their classes. And so we actually have had, we're still selling about $1,000 a day in the bookstore, which is helping students be able to finish this semester successfully. And that's the reason the bookstore is still open, is to allow those students to finish their courses.
To get what they need. Let me just clarify that we don't have 41,000 students coming to campus. So the services that remain open, they are just those limited services that we feel are necessary to support the few who feel they need to come to campus to get the things that they need in order to complete this semester. Val, another question for you. In the news, we've heard predictions by prominent medical professionals stating that the curve will flatten in the summer, the COVID-19 curve, but increase again for the winter. Will UVU plan a backup plan for this?
So definitely there's a possibility that when we hit winter, the October-November timeframe, that the COVID-19 virus could happen again. Clearly, just like an earthquake, the second time it's never as large as the first time. And so if you look at other instances like SARS and H1N1, that was really a ripple effect. And so we are right now making some plans of what we'd have to do if there was a ripple effect later in the fall. But right now we're hoping that the fall semester will continue as normal, that we'll be able to have face-to-face classes, and that we'll prepare accordingly, especially as you see the news happening, that they're looking at different possible vaccines and antibodies and different solutions. So right now we are starting to make some plans about how we could best handle this if we did have a small flare-up, but we continue to plan to have operations as normal.
Thank you, Val. I think one of the takeaways COVID-19 is teaching us is that we must be constantly alert as well as be quick to pivot. And so definitely planning, thinking of different scenarios that could play out is something that we will be doing. I'd now like to invite our Vice President for Planning, Budget, Assessment, and HR, Vice President Linda Macon, to join me. Linda, as many of you may know, has been with UVU, not with you, with us, for a very long time, and she nearly broke the chair. What happened, Linda?
Over the set. I'm sorry.
So, thank you for being here, Linda. There's a range of questions around employment, job retention, and it's not news to anybody that our economy is suffering, that so many people are not able to work, that there's a lot of uncertainty about what budgets will look like. Finances are critical to the solid functioning of UVU and to our ability to succeed. And I have huge respect for Linda as someone who is detail-oriented and can tell the story and knows what we are facing and how we may cope with different types of scenarios that may come upon us in the future. So there's quite a few questions here for Linda. Let me start with the first one. Is there a possibility that the university will furlough or lay off employees? And if so, how will that be determined?
Well, first of all, our top priority is to maintain jobs and to avoid furloughs and layoffs. We're working hard at that. I think an example of that is when we had to send people away from campus to work, there were a number of employees that couldn't work from home. We've been working with HR to identify other part-time jobs for those people to do on campus or remotely so that they could maintain their employment. So we're working hard at protecting jobs. I can assure you that Cabinet and Human Resources is doing all they can to maintain jobs and avoid furloughs and layoffs.
Maybe just to follow up on that, when do you anticipate that we'll have a little more clarity on budgets and numbers? Is that a month or 2 or 3 from now? Your best estimate.
Yes, to all of those, a month and 2 and 3 from now. So I think that we'll start to get clarity as the state starts to get clarity on understanding the economic impact to them, and as we start to watch summer and fall enrollments. And I think you have questions coming up on those for Kyle Reyes.
Another question to Linda. I know that some of us are worried about the financial impact of COVID-19. Can you speak about how you will try to minimize the financial impact that COVID-19 will have on UVU?
So I think that's a great question. I think it's something everyone's concerned about. The good news is UVU is in really good financial position. We have reserves and contingencies. We're already implementing and identifying a number of fiscal strategies that we will implement. One of those strategies is later today and tomorrow, we'll be announcing to leadership on campus some new human resource guidelines. Those guidelines are to help us maintain maximum fiscal flexibility as well as to retain jobs. So yes, it's something we're definitely paying attention to and watching, but we're well positioned, President, to weather this storm.
Thank you. You were slated to release PBA this month, our planning, budget, and assessment process, and the announcement are supposed to be happening this month. Is that going to happen, or is the university going to wait until the legislature fixes the budget?
So another great question. President, as you know, we had a great legislative session. We were poised to invest in some of those critical initiatives to move Vision 2030 forward and to promote student success. Unfortunately, these latest turn of events have caused us to pause. So we're going to pause PBA, and we will be making very, very limited decisions of things that we may actually have to write checks for in the near future. But beyond that, we're going to pause PBA and give ourselves some time to understand our financial position better.
Thank you, Linda. We will make an official announcement on PBA. It was originally slated for April 23. We're going to have to postpone that until we have better clarity on the budget from the legislature. A few other questions on remote work in particular and working conditions during COVID-19. When will you require all high-risk, essential/non-essential employees to stay home whether they want to or not?
Okay, so there's a lot in that question. The first is high-risk employees. If you are at high risk as deemed by your doctor based on your medical conditions, we've been saying from the moment we started to send people home, please reach out to HR, notify your supervisor. There's a form you can fill out. If you are at high risk, please take every precaution to protect yourself. As far as when will we force everyone off campus, we're not forcing people off campus. We're following the governor's directives, and we invite you to, again, to consider your own health risks at this time.
I would just add to that it's really important that if you're in doubt, please speak with your supervisor. Please have those direct lines of communication open and working. Another question: to encourage employees to stay home when they are sick or have symptoms of being sick, are you going to provide additional PTO sick time?
Another great and timely question, actually. So we encourage employees when they're ill to stay home, whether it's this situation or any other illness that you have. That's so that you can heal and recover. It's also to protect the university community. So we invite you to do that. The university provides generous sick leave and sick leave accrual. We also provide leave under the Family Medical Leave Act. So we invite you to consider those. Just this week, we are reviewing for implementation some additional potential sick leave opportunities for employees that have been passed by Congress recently. So I would say stay tuned for more information on that. That will hopefully be rolling out in the next week as we understand more the legislation that was recently passed.
Second to last question here. In my years working on campus, I've heard a lot of debate or conflict between faculty and staff as to who should get offices. Will the trial work from home policy open the opportunity to free up office space, create more common space that could be reserved, and have an option for more employees to work from home?
So this has been a great opportunity to allow a number of employees to experience remote work. And they're experiencing both the advantages and the disadvantages of working remotely. I think that we'll be considering that. We'll probably be asking employees for their experiences. We'll be asking supervisors about continuity of services. And I think in the end, I think our eyes have been opened on this, but I think that ongoing decisions about this matter will take some time. And of course, we'll be focused on what's in the best interest of student and employee success as we consider that question moving forward.
Okay, Linda, really quickly, two more things. If on May 1st we can't be on campus still, will Category 3 employees continue to get paid?
Oh, that is a great question, and I know it's on the mind of many of our employees, and I wish I had a definitive answer for you all today. I don't. What I can say is that we are actively engaged as a cabinet and human resources in evaluating every Category 3 employee position. Is there remote work that we could have them do? How quickly will we be allowed to return to campus? Some of that depends on the governor's directives. So I just want you to be assured that we're looking at every way possible to do that. We're also looking at our financial ability as well as additional legislation that's come from the federal government. So stay tuned. I don't have the definitive answer, but we're working to get an answer.
And finally, Linda, why cancel summer university? We all could use a diversion right now.
I love summer university, and it's been one of the hardest decisions to try to make, and I held on and held on and held on because I did not want to cancel summer university. Summer university, though, it's a great opportunity for employees to come together, to learn together, and to serve together. And given all of the pressures on our employees right now with their balancing their work life, remote work, as well as the other concerns around COVID-19 economically, emotionally, mentally, we just determined we didn't have the bandwidth to support moving summer university online. We also didn't think it would quite accomplish what we wanted to in terms of bringing people together to build unity across campus.
All right, thank you so much, Linda.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I'd like now to welcome here to the studio Vice President Kyle Reyes, our Vice President for Student Affairs. Kyle, thank you so much for being here. I have two questions for you from the 260 questions submitted. First, is the university anticipating a sharp decline in enrollment for summer and fall? And I think this is a very legitimate question given what COVID-19 has done so far to us.
Definitely, it's a legitimate question. And while we don't expect a sharp decline, we are definitely monitoring this on a daily basis. We have noticed a slight decline for summer enrollments, but a fairly flat enrollment for the fall. one of the things that we're doing right now in terms of our targeted outreach and efforts is to reach out to folks who might have been displaced because of the economy. Traditionally any time that there is a sinking economy or anything that might be adverse for people's jobs, a lot of folks return to college. And so we are reaching out to many of our adult learner population, many who have lost jobs, to see if they want to revamp or retool and come and earn a meaningful credential. Another thing that's important to note in terms of the enrollments is that we have a program called Leave of Absence where students for military, maternity, missions, and other reasons step away from school with the intent to return. And we're noticing now for various reasons that as students are returning early from such services, that they are wanting to get back into school. And so what we're trying to do is we have a pretty robust campaign to market our online offerings, especially for the first block of summer, but we are constantly marketing as well the fall enrollments. So while we don't have, again, a definitive answer on that, and we're watching this just like everyone else about in terms of the behavior of whether or not students are going to return, we believe that we will be around a flat enrollment and maybe even up slightly in the fall.
And maybe this is a good time to encourage everyone to talk to the people you know who may be interested in summer classes. I think this is the work of all of us, not just student affairs, to continue to encourage people to engage with learning opportunities that we can offer them here at UVU. Kyle, what areas and services of the school are still available to students?
Sure. I'll generally just say that in addition to, within the frequently asked questions, our announcements about campus building closures, we've closed many of the buildings, but services have remained open and services have remained remote. Everything from advising to mental health services to even the food pantry have all been offered remotely. And so we have had so many of our departments across campus in various divisions change their websites, make sure that we have chatbots in place, make sure that we have people routing phones to the remote workplace to ensure that students are still getting questions answered. I will say, as just a general reminder, and I believe that we'll have a reminder at the end of this as well, and that is for any student who still is wondering if there are specific resources or services that they can access, there is one email that they can send their inquiry to, and that is deanofstudents@uvu.edu. Dean Alexis Palmer and her team are ready to triage those questions and make sure that students get connected to the right resources and services. And so please continue to pass that along. We have received through that email hundreds of inquiries from students who just had random questions, but also needed some timely answers. And so we appreciate you passing that information on to any students.
Thank you, Kyle. I want to repeat that, deanofstudents@uvu.edu.
Correct.
There are sometimes so many things to keep straight in our heads, but in the case of student inquiries about services, it's wonderful to have that one-stop place where you can ask your question. And I know that the Office of Student Affairs has really shown a lot of exceptional care. So thank you to you and your team, Kyle.
Thank you, President.
I would now like to ask our Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs, Professor Wayne Vaught, to join me. Thank you for being here, Wayne, and if we could just show off Wayne's green tie today, that would be great. The last time Wayne was on this show, he was wearing a blue tie, but
them all.
he's changed his ways. Academic Affairs has been so busy. I cannot even describe what that has been like for Academic Affairs, because that pivot to alternative deliveries of education has been so intense. So quite a few questions focused on faculty, on grading, and how we may teach our courses come fall semester. So Wayne, here's a first question. A major concern involves our students with learning disabilities. Although faculty can easily adjust the time a student has for an online exam, we can't provide a distraction-free testing environment or other adaptive services that testing services offered. So what do you say to students facing that kind of problem?
Yeah, I want students to know that we are continuing to offer our support services, particularly for students who have disabilities, and that we know about those disabilities, that they've had those documented. We've reached out to those students already this semester. The testing center is closed on campus in order to help protect our students. But we've reached out, we've asked students to work with their instructors. Certainly we hope instructors will be accommodating as they can. But the testing services do have opportunities and options where they can identify alternative testing arrangements, either in the student's home using Proctorio and some other tools that we have. So any student that would have any questions about or needs that they feel are not being met, they can email at our testing services at uvu.edu. They can also write to us at academiccontinuity@uvu.edu if they have any difficulty getting these services met. So we are absolutely continuing to support students in their testing through this semester.
Let me underline again, two very important email addresses have been mentioned here. Dean of Students at uvu.edu for all the student services, and anything academic related, academic continuity at uvu.edu. Those are being monitored constantly, and we are addressing concerns as they arise. Wayne, another question. I'd really like to see UVU offer more academic counseling. Our school is so large and overwhelmingly understaffed with counselors. What is UVU doing and planning to do to offer academic counseling at an adequate student to counselor ratio, both during this pandemic but also under normal operations?
Absolutely, President. We continue to provide academic support services, and our academic advisors are still readily available to meet with students. They will be doing it remotely, so they can still schedule appointments and talk to your advisor. We have increased our advising through our first year advising center. We are looking, hopefully, I know that we had some conversations just a few minutes ago about the PBA process, but we did have in place opportunities to hire, particularly new first year advisors, and some other opportunities to hire advisors throughout the other academic units, many of which are growing at a considerable rate. So all of the faculty, all of the unit leaders, academic leadership throughout the university recognizes the importance of quality advising, and we're doing everything that we can to put advisors in place so that they can meet our students' needs.
I think it's important to remember that the issue of academic advising has not come up simply because of COVID-19 and the circumstances in which we find ourselves today. This is a constant theme because it's so important for student retention and completion. And as our provost said, we have plans in place. And once we clear our budget on PBA, we hope to be able to allocate more resources to bolstering our academic advising cohort. Wayne, what is the university doing to protect and help faculty who might be going up for tenure in the fall?
This question has come up. This has obviously caused a disruption, not just for our students, but for our faculty, many of whom are in the probationary period, what we call the pre-tenure period for faculty. And so working with Faculty Senate and faculty leadership, we're going to offer an opportunity extending the deadline for which faculty can request an extension of their tenure clock. And faculty, even beyond this next year, would be able to request an extension due to the circumstances. Maybe it's because you had extra course requirements because of the transition, or health or family issues that were impacting your ability to really stay on task and on target for promotion. So we are working with faculty to ensure that we're doing our best to make sure that that we minimize the disruption to your progress as a faculty member and an important member of our academic community.
The next question is still on faculty. What is the university doing to protect faculty who rely on student evaluations to be able to continue teaching at UVU?
And again, working with faculty senate and faculty leadership, we're developing a plan for exactly how we will address SRIs for this semester. They are obviously going to be different because of the circumstances, and faculty, just like students, have been concerned about how the transition was going to impact their grades. Our faculty are concerned about how this is going to impact the student perception of their performance in the classroom. So we're working to make sure that this does not negatively impact our faculty. But we haven't come up with an exact plan, but within the next few weeks we should be able to announce what that plan will look like.
Thank you, Wayne. Will the university consider allowing students to choose the pass-fail option after final grades have been posted? I've seen another university do this.
The university leadership, again, the deans and academic senate, faculty senate, we all met and discussed with our registrar as well what would be the best option. We've decided April 24th, which is the last day of classes, basically allowing students to complete the class and then have the option to decide whether they are going to receive a credit or no credit for that course. From what I understand, this is consistent with what some of the other institutions have done, though there is some variance around the state and around the country on this. But we thought that this was a very fair solution for students, and it gave them a chance to really weigh which option they would like for their grading for the semester.
So just to emphasize, what we offer is the credit, no credit, or a letter grade. And there is a whole website devoted to this. If you as the staff or employees of the university are asked by students, or you have children who are students here, there is complete information on our website just on the grading options during COVID-19. What are the plans for fall term classes? Will they be online or face-to-face?
Yes. The answer is we hope that fall semester will be back to a normal scenario, so that we will be offering both face-to-face courses and online courses. We have been offering about 20% of our courses online already. That may pick up a little bit, the number of online courses that we offer in the fall, but we are hoping that we will be back to a normal schedule, though we are certainly asking faculty to be prepared with alternate plans, because we just really don't know what the situation will be, and a lot of this will depend on what the health impact is on our region, and we'll be very responsive to that, because our first priority ultimately is the safety and welfare of our faculty and of our students. And our staff.
Yeah, so ideally we would like to be able to go back to face-to-face in the fall, but I think it's also fair to say that the hybridized courses, meaning face-to-face and online, that we would be powering that up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We will definitely be working to provide additional courses, and I'm sure we will see more online courses offered this fall as well.
Yeah, I want to add that the fastest growing cohort of enrollment at UVU are the hybrid students who are taking face-to-face and online. And this makes sense when we remember that 81% of our students work. So when they can come to class face-to-face, they do that, but they need the flexibility to do online courses. In the fall this year, 25% of our student enrollment was hybrid. And in spring this year, that number was 37%. So from 25 to 37%. That's a really, really important data point. Wayne, one more question. Because of the pandemic-related transition from traditional to online instruction this summer, student enrollment in these courses could become lower than the official number required for classes to carry. Would UVU address this concern by temporarily lowering the minimum enrollment threshold for some of these courses, especially in the summer?
We will certainly look on a case-by-case basis. Interestingly enough, many of our summer courses were already online, and online is a very popular option for students taking courses in the summer because it gives them a lot of flexibility. They could be going anywhere and traveling about and still be able to take courses. There will be limited number of face-to-face courses even available during our full summer semesters. Full summer term, we will not be offering face-to-face, and in our first block, we will not be offering face-to-face. There will be some face-to-face possible. We'll sort of look and see what the situation is for the second block. But in a case-by-case basis, we'll look, and if there needs to be some lowering of that, I don't think we'll do it as an across-the-board, but we will do it on a case-by-case basis.
All right. Thank you, Wayne.
Well, thank you so much.
I hope that those answers were helpful to all of us on this call today. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are two questions that I want to answer quickly before going to some kind of final thoughts for today. One of the questions that I want to answer is this: what are the most important messages you would like us to be sharing with donors to UVU? Donors are extremely important to what we do. As a state institution, we are constrained on the resources that we have. So if we think of anything from buildings to programs, first generation programming, leadership programming, various opportunities for our students' athletics, we get a lot of assistance from donors. So it's really important during this pandemic that we continue to communicate closely with our donors, and our institutional advancement is doing that. Donors, I'm sure, would like to hear what we have done to adjust to COVID-19. And in terms of the budget itself, anything that's donor funded that's been projected for the coming year, that funding is safe right now because we only spend money that comes from earnings the prior year. And so donor funds that have been allocated already, we will be able to cover that. I would also like to inform all of you that our investment committee, that is a subset of our UVU Foundation board that shepherds where our endowment gets invested, that they have been meeting on a regular basis to protect our portfolio, to hedge as much as we can, to maximize returns where we can. But of course, it's completely understandable and not at all a puzzle that most portfolios have been hit. We will not know the final impact until some of the dust settles. But the bottom line is, yes, please keep engaging with donors. Inform them of what you're doing. Inform them of our successes and some of the things we're struggling with. For our CARE fundraising, this emergency funding for students with needs right now, we have also engaged our donors and informed them about that in case they want to participate. Another question that I want to answer is, will you consider requiring all of our campus employees to wear masks? I think where masks are available, everybody should wear them when you're on campus. Of course, when I'm working in my office, and I'm in the office about 4 days a week, I'm alone and my door is closed, I do not have to wear this mask. But it is prudent. Even today here in the studio, we could see all of our colleagues here, our camera people, Will McKinnon, who's in charge. Everyone is wearing a mask, so I think that is prudent. I know we have some dust masks that are available. They may not be absolutely the highest quality, but they will help. So those of you who are watching, please take a moment to look at this slide. You could find all of this information at uvu.info. So you don't have to struggle writing this down. You can, of course, take a picture of this with your camera, since everybody has a camera in their hands. But there were many things raised today. It's hard to remember every single nuance. Please know that from day one, when we started communicating about COVID-19 and what we were doing, we set up all of these sites. It's uvu.info. If you look at this list, there's the employee FAQ, there's the HR, there's events, travel, faculty, students, campus facilities, and even UTA. So it's just important that you go back to uvu.info when you're in doubt. What we are trying to do with the FAQs is update all of them as it becomes necessary to do so. I want to now just pause a little bit here because as we think about what COVID-19 has done and is doing, it may be difficult for us to express, or maybe not so difficult to express what we're feeling. But when I go around, either in cabinet or my own family or friends that I'm in touch with online, I like to ask, how are you feeling? And When I'm asked how I'm feeling, I think there are days I feel really good. There are days I worry. I think subconsciously in my mind at night, there are things that I'm concerned about. So I feel like what we are doing at UVU or what the impact of COVID-19 ultimately will be, these are unknowns. And so if you look at the quote that I put on the slide, which is by Pema Chodron, I'd encourage you all to look up her writings. She's a Buddhist nun, and I think this is her first book, When Things Fall Apart. Now, things haven't really fallen apart, but let's read the quote. The essence of life is that it's challenging. And she goes on to say some days we feel good, some days we don't, some days we have a headache, some days we're 100% great, some days we're feeling very tense, some days we're totally relaxed and open. And she says this is what it means to be alive. We can't want everything to be tied neatly in a ribbon, although that may be a desire we have. She says to be fully alive, to be fully human, and completely awake is to be continually thrown out of the nest. I want to focus for a second on this phrase, to be thrown out of the nest. One of my favorite books that I read to all my children is the book, Are You My Mother? And many of you might know that book. It's about that little bird that, falls out of the nest. And it's certainly not a very comfortable feeling when you're out of your nest. And without exaggerating the impact of COVID-19, we do know that it's led to a lot of uncertainty. It's made us do things that are outside of our comfort zones. But to finish that quote, Pema Chodron says, to live fully is to be always in no man's land, to experience each moment as completely new and fresh. And I'd like us to think about this for a second. What does it mean to experience what we're experiencing now as new and fresh moments? Much of this is not necessarily positive, but they are new in that they challenge us. They are new in that they ask us to do things in ways we've never done before. They are fresh in that they make us think, how else can I help? What else can I do so that as part of this community, I can contribute to our ability day to day to manage what we need to manage? What is it that is under my control where I can make a positive difference? What is it that's not under my control and therefore I'm going to have to let it go? How do I embrace all of this newness, all of these challenges? So I hope that this is something that we can reflect upon. I think this is already evident in the ways that we have behaved as a community. And I remember in a session with Professor Ann Arndt, our Faculty Senate President, that one of her observations about COVID-19 is that the feeling of community, of working together here at UVU has been truly strong. And I agree with her on that. It is what encourages me every single day, and it is what gives me courage to continue working with my team, continue working together, and do the best we can. I also want to say, finally, that a big thank you is warranted at this point in time. It would be difficult for me to mention every single person or every single department or division that's done heavy lifting in the last 5 to 8 weeks. I will just begin by thanking the people in the studio today who made today possible. And I want to thank my cabinet. They've been so open-hearted and open-minded about reading all of the questions that have come in, and we've discussed them, and we've tried to address all of the big themes that came up. Student Affairs, as I mentioned earlier, has done a lot of heavy lifting. Academic Affairs, Communications, my office. We are in this together, so I want to thank everybody, our facilities people, the colleagues we have who are still running the 3 food outlets that are operating on campus. So if you are on campus, please patronize these dining services. There are only 3 that are open. We are Wolverines, and I was asking myself, what does that mean? Last year, I was doing a lot of research on what being a Wolverine means, and there's that issue of grit. And grit is not an excuse. I've seen comments where people say, well, you're just telling us to be gritty, but you're not really doing anything. Let me assure you that that is not the case. That administration, the faculty, staff, that together with you, You know how intense this has been. As Wolverines, we have grit. We continue to engage. We know that we can step up more, that we can find reserves of positivity and energy and enthusiasm. We know that as Wolverines, we can confirm our faith in the enterprise of higher education, that this continues to be very worthwhile, very worthy, very transformative. And we also know that as Wolverines, we can continue to build our community by helping one another, because there's a lot of work to be done. So I want to close by saying thank you again. Thank you for engaging today. Thank you for sending your questions in. We will probably do some more communications in the future, and I look forward to more engagement with everybody. Thank you so much to all of you.